and welcome back to Fate of the Pods, your favorite podcast for both RS3 and real life content. I'm Aerro.
And I'm Rainyday.
And today, and today we are joined by the very special guest, RS named Reinis.
Hello.
Yes. And
Hi,
today,
Reinis.
woo!
Hi, Reinis.
Today we are talking about everything wilderness, and so we needed to have the wilderness guru on to give us the tips and tricks.
Yes, I'm here for the wilderness. I guess a little background about me. I kind of run one of the few remaining active Warbands FCs still around. It's called Illusion. You may or may not have heard of them. So yeah, I guess I'm here to talk about Warbands and all my knowledge of current up-to-date status of it. So
the living legend himself.
Yeah. I was recruited by shout out to her, Miss Coffee Pot, many months ago. But this was probably back in like late 2020. But I started actively warbanding mid-March. So yeah, I've gotten a lot of XP doing warbands. So thank you to Illusion for that. But yeah.
Yes.
Aerro, how many warband camps have you looted in your life?
Ooh, you're coming in with the jugular. Maybe, I mean, all time, probably between like 10 and 15, I would say.
Not bad. You definitely had to get one for your elite task, right?
Yes. Yeah, I can say that back in the day when our other RuneScape friend, Daisy, when she used to run warbands all the time, I would sometimes tag along, but that's really been about the limit of my warbands experience, and we'll get into it here, but I've just been someone who kind of avoids the wild at all cost. Like if I don't have to be there, I never see myself going there. If there were never requirements for me to go there, I would never go there. I know some people like live and die, no pun intended, by the wild and are big fans of it, but I'm just not one of those people. But let's start our wilderness conversation with a little throwback in time. So Reinis, I'm not sure when you officially started playing RuneScape. 2000
Probably like 2005, 2006, but in the very beginning it was very on and off.
Okay.
So
you started playing before they took away player killing for about 4 years, 2007 to 2011.
Yeah.
I think this would be a great intro to kind of this conversation, because at the time it was a very controversial decision to take away the wildy and free trade. That it was kind of like for whatever reason those both came together. But do you have any thoughts or memories thinking back to that time period and kind of what the environment was like when they took away player killing?
Yeah, no, I definitely have some insights on it. I'm not gonna lie, back in those days, I was still a very young little guy, probably still elementary, middle school, but I think that's probably where a lot of us, start our RS journeys. And back then, I also didn't really touched the wilderness much at all. Not a big PKer, but I am not going to lie that I did try to make an initiate pure, probably back in like the early 2007s. Not because I was good at PKing, but I saw a lot of videos of people just, killing people in the wilderness. And, they always hyped you up with like the old school songs. I'm like, man, this looks pretty sick, right? But yeah, definitely back then, there was not much like knowledge of almost anything but like how PKing is like in these days. You definitely had people running around in all sorts of like mixed gear. If a guy had ancients on you, like you pretty much like were scared and like didn't know what to do. Teleblocked, it was the end of the world. But yeah, back then I think what little accounts I did make, I tried to go into the whole free to play PKing. Back then, you had your good old maple short bow with adamant arrows and your rune 2Hs. Primarily because I couldn't afford membership on multiple accounts as a kid. But why they took away trade back then, I think a lot of it was related to probably like real world trading, right?
Yep.
And that was a big topic with I can't remember the exact details. Probably something with like the British government on gaming and like money. I don't know. I might just be making that up. Uh, so I think definitely it was really like strange back then for sure because wilderness was always a scary place to be, and then all of a sudden like you go out there and you can't kill each other anymore, and it's just like there's nothing to do out there, right? Because the content back then was not nearly as vast as it is now. Uh, so yeah, it was definitely a strange decision, but I'm very glad that eventually they realized that it wasn't the right one and they overturned it.
Right. I think even if you're someone like myself who really doesn't care at all for PKing or like wilderness activities, I feel like it kind of in essence is sort of the backbone of this game, or at least is part of the foundation of what RuneScape is, right? So I feel like depriving the game of that type of content is, I don't know. It doesn't seem right. It's like if you took away questing for RuneScape for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a integral part of the experience.
And when I was like younger and playing RuneScape, the only YouTube videos I would come across were like wilderness PKing videos with like the unregistered Hypercam 2 and the Evanescence song Bring Me to Life was always playing.
Classic for sure.
Yeah, but I wanted to ask, because there's the wilderness, which is like north of Edgeville, but there used to be PvP worlds where like the entire world was a PKing zone and like the banks were safe spaces. Was that not in the 2007 to 2011 era? Because I remember those days.
So, sorry, I didn't want to budge in, but I can kind of answer that just because I did a little research for the
Yes.
podcast. Before they brought it back in full in 2011, they, like in 2009, maybe early 2010, they brought out the PvP specific worlds. So you could kill anybody anywhere on those specific worlds only. And that was kind of a weird, okay, I don't want to get like super off track, but I do have to like, there's this very odd memory that I have about those PvP specific worlds. I don't know what the glitch was, but I remember my friend, we were in like 7th or 8th grade, and every day after school I would go over to his house, and he had 2 computers, so we'd play with each other. And I can't remember which item, but there was an item that if you were wearing it and then like killed someone in the PvP world and then they died, and then the other person came back from, like, let's say we're just sitting in Lumbridge, and then I'll come back and kill him, he would drop like an Abysso whip, dragon dagger, stuff he wasn't carrying. Like he would have no inventory, but you would get like a glitch drop of good weapons and stuff.
Interesting.
That they weren't originally holding. But yeah, before the wilderness came back in full, there was just the PvP specific worlds.
Oh, okay. So that's what took its place, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank
So
you.
they banned it all together. A couple years went by, then they brought the PvP specific worlds back, and then a couple years went by, and then they brought the wilderness back.
Yeah, and to add on top of that, right? The strange thing was kind of like what you were saying. You kill someone, they don't drop like what they were wearing. Like it gave you like a mixed bag of loot, and I don't know how exactly it was calculated out. Maybe it was like how much value they had on, but I think people like found a way to manipulate it, right, to get those like whips and high value drops from like almost nothing at all. So definitely an interesting time in the wilderness for sure.
Absolutely. So then I guess going off that, Reinis, what initially got you into the player killing scene, would you say?
Yeah, so definitely, kind of like Rainey said, all those PKing videos for sure. Definitely, because like back in the day when YouTube just started up, like it seemed like you almost had like two categories of videos. You had your good old quest guides, which saved us all a bunch of headaches, and then you had the people doing the PKing montages. So definitely going through those videos, really found those, cool and intriguing. And I still remember some of like the very early videos. You can still find them on YouTube. I specifically remember this one guy just because I was like, dang, that's a good name. It was like hard H but instead of the R, he had 12 in there and then D all spaced out. So I was like, man, that guy was really cool. But like, if you YouTube him right now, like he's got like deep wilderness PKing videos from like way back in the day, and it's like, uh, definitely a good like old relic to look at of how the game used to be. But in terms of like my own personal PKing, a lot of it started from pretty much just being part of the warband scene back in the early 2010s, and I guess now in the 2020s. I started out kind of, as a general looter, like a lot of people do. Uh, and then just over time, throughout all the crashes and battles that you have with the other groups out there, eventually you're kind of tired of just, falling over, and you're ready to fight back at some point. So, over months of training and just lots of practice and lots of deaths too. I think that's what kind of really inspired me to get into the PvP action out there. And I think that's Warbands definitely helped create a lot of the PKers that are out and running in the wilderness now, and probably even in old school too, and so forth. So
do either of you like have any memories of actually like being in the like PvP scene, like pre-EOC? Because I only know it from videos, but I always liked how like two people would fight and everybody else would watch, but when one person would like get dropped, no one with like good gear would come and like PK the person that was like picking up the loot. Like I feel like that's somewhat honorable, because I was always like, they're kind of like busy picking up loot, why doesn't somebody come and like whack them? Or like how like the Darok PKing where like you have to be low HP, just like stuff like that. And then pures, I don't know, it was back then was like a really different time than what it is now, but
it for sure was like, yeah, for sure was a different era. My very limited memories of the whole player killing was when my early group of RuneScape friends, we would go to the Green Dragons in the wilderness to like loot, pick up stuff, try to make some money, and then inevitably someone would come along and like ice barrage us, or like magic short bow, if you remember the glowing green arrow attack or whatever, and just drop you, and then you lose all your stuff, blah blah blah, and then you go back 3 days later, do it again, rinse and repeat. But I don't think I've ever killed anybody with like the intention of like killing a random person. I think I've killed my friends in the wild for like whatever dumb reason, but I've never been like, all right, I'm gonna go set up to go kill some people in the wilderness XD. I've never done that.
Yeah, and I guess you usually gotta have some motive behind it, right?
He's like, well,
oh man, no, I was just gonna add to the pre-EOC PKing. Definitely some like older weapons I remember from a lot of the videos. You guys remember the Karasi, right?
yes.
That sword, that special attack
yes.
always popped. And like even back then, like the best gear you had was like chaotics and spirit shields. I remember if you had those out in the time, like you were pretty much like indestructible. And also the Armado battle staff. I don't know if you remember that, but that used to be like really big, like one of the best like mage weapons out there. It probably like just came into the game right before like EOC happened and everything. So
Yeah. So many good spec weapons that I guess kind of became relevant again with the release of Essence of Finality, but like the dragon claws were a big deal, and then the poison of the dragon dagger. Um,
Oh yeah, DDS
just
spec.
yes, that one. But yeah, those are just some cool things to just. I never PK'd, but I still think about those. Or that the PKing community is like pretty cool. Um,
So to
You
kind
got
of, oh sorry,
no, I was just gonna. Do you think anyone's put a Karasi in EOF yet?
I don't know, but that's a pretty cool idea.
We might have to test it out.
Yeah.
I feel like didn't they nerf the spec on that at some point? Like a long time ago. It's been a while, but it was like 65%, but now it's like 45% of like the max hit. I don't remember what it was, but I feel like it got nerfed
Damn.
before.
Probably.
Rest in peace to the power of the Karasi sword.
So to kind of segue from that, what was the transition like then from pre-EOC to evolution of combat for people who were actively PKing? Was it an easy transition? Was it kind of in the vein that no one really knows how to use this, so we're kind of all at the same playing field still, or was there like a big adjustment that needed to be made?
Yeah, no, I think definitely like kind of with everything, huge adjustment for everything just because like you didn't just click on something and just whack it to death. You now had like abilities. I definitely was not really into PKing at the time of EOC when it happened, everything. But EOC definitely added like some like game changers to like what's used in like modern PKing and I guess PVM as well. Like the big one I can think of is stuns, right? We didn't really have stuns besides like Ice Barrage back then, and like all you did was get hit and wait. But, like now, like a big part of PvP is stunning your opponent, knowing how to use freedom and anticipation, and that's honestly like if you figure out how to manage your stuns, you'll be an expert PKer in modern EOC. But that's probably one of the main things I can think of. Also, like keybinds, right? You can now like put all your switches on your action bar rather than clicking it. So, yeah, definitely changed the game back then. I'm sure it probably took people many years and months to figure out, and there's still stuff we're learning to this day. But I definitely say, yeah, EOC switched things up, and it caused a whole player base to move and transition essentially, right? And, you see how big old school PKing is still, but maybe it's like those people just never, learned the EOC combat system and, weren't able to handle the transition like the other people around.
Yeah, I specifically remember a lot of people completely quitting because they hated the idea of a new combat system, only to come back like a few years later and be like, yeah, I tried it out and it's like pretty fun. I guess they just didn't like the initial idea of complete change. Um, but yeah, I was just gonna straight up say a lot of them quit, but yeah, only to come back. Or old school was released like shortly after EOC, so
True. What is okay? Let's fast forward now. Talked about EOC, and now fast forward almost math Joshua 9 years. Can't think. What is your current, so let's say later today you're gonna go out and do some PKing. What does your setup, what does everything involve for you? What's kind of your strategy, if you're able to talk about it? I don't want to spoil your secrets or anything, but can you give us
Yeah,
like
the trade secrets.
right,
Yeah.
can you give us the run through of what a PKing experience looks like?
Yeah, sure. I think let's see. To be honest, it's like a very rare instance where I'm just like, I'm gonna go out and kill people, right? There's usually some sort of like event associated with it. Like a big thing that happened yesterday, Penguins reset, and you go out there, there's a bunch of people just like killing people. And sometimes it's just to annoy people, sometimes it's to get loot. Uh, it's for just that's just like me personally. But yeah, usually I can just go through some of my setups. So for your familiar, this is probably a big part. If you're gonna go PKing or just out in the wilderness in general, highly recommended. Bring a pack, yak, or a mammoth. Can't stress this enough, but having 30 to 32 extra slots of food and prayer, very important just for in general survivability. Uh, I've seen some people go out there with Titans, and if it actually does get on you, it actually can slap and do a good bit of damage. But then you also have the prayer for deflect from summoning, so it's in general it's probably a lot more useful to have a pack yak of food. There was the Abyssal Demon familiar that came out with the binding contracts, which when like released, it sounded promising because like if you read the scrolls and special, it actually like teleblocks your target. But like I think I tried using it a few times and it like almost never went off, so I kind of just gave up on that, and I pretty much stick to yaks now. I think some of the other things to go over auras. There's really three auras that I know of that people really cycle for PvP, and you might want to jot these down for notes if you ever go out there killing people. I think these are the ones that majority of the PKers use. If you want to be a defensive tank, the Aegis aura exists. I don't know the exact details of it, but it kind of like shields like damage that you take periodically, so it helps you in any spicy situation there. Ancestor Spirits and Dark Magic are the other auras I see PKers using, and I think because a lot of the other ones, like your Reckless and Supreme Runic Accuracies and so forth, I don't think they work in PvP, so I think these were the ones that found over the years that actually do work with Ancestor Spirits and Dark Magic. I guess in terms of food, Sailfish, probably your best friends. I used to run sharks, but then I realized, if you're in a life or death like situation in the game, better food definitely helps. I used to run sharks, but nah, switch to sailfish. And then there's definitely some niche items out there as well that a lot of the PKing community uses. I'm sure you guys have done some Slayer before. You guys ever kill Ganodermic beasts before and get those mushrooms that you have no idea what they're used for?
Oh yeah, it's been a minute, but yes.
Yeah, they kind of gain some value because like you fed your mushrooms and pop with them, but those are actually a PvP item. After eating them, for 10 seconds after eating those mushrooms, your damage is reduced by 15%. So that's kind of part of the reason they hold value. And I also know Reinis is a big fan of giant mole,
Nice.
and you get the numbing roots from there, right? Also a very niche PvP
yeah.
item that stops bleeds that get on you. So if you get like a slaughter or something that does a ton of damage, numbing root is really good to just stop that. There's a bit of a cooldown on it, but very useful.
I should have used those when I'm sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, you're good.
Used them when Deton tried to PK me and he put a frag shot on me. So Deton, if you're watching this,
She's gonna get you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think one of the most interesting items that not many people that don't step in the wilderness don't know about is, do you guys know what a Fury Shark is? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I swear I used to get them killing lava strike worms, but I could be wrong.
Exactly. Nope,
Yes.
you're 100% right. So the Fury Sharks have a very interesting effect. So they heal like 2,475, which is really good. But for 60 seconds after eating a Fury Shark, you protect an extra item when dying. So this is pretty big for PKers, because you skull up and essentially you risk everything on you, and if you were to die, you would lose it. But obviously you have your good friend Protect item, which would save on those items, and then you could also Fury Shark another item. So I know some of the good rangers out there that are PKers, they'll bring their, Nox bow as their main weapon. But then, as an extra expensive item to help them out there, they'll bring Nightmare Gauntlets as well. So then in case they do die and get in a bad situation, they can Fury Shark the Nightmares, and, they'll keep their both high value items out there. And then just a few other, I guess, equipment to use for healing damage. Phoenix necklaces, very good. I'm sure you guys use them at Virago in the very beginning, but they're good in PvP because if you get really low health, they'll just give you a few thousand HP. And a kind of a lost item that people forget about, but they're really also good in PvP are portents of like restoration. So like when you transfuse your div energy and your rock tails to create those portents, they can really save you in PvP because that's like food you don't have to eat, and it just does it for you if you're in a bad situation and just getting comboed out. So that's kind of stuff you'll have in your inventory. In terms of like armor that I could kind of go through, I kind of divided into three sets almost. I'd say like the very bare bones, I'll call this group the rags. This is like your, the armor that's like really cheap and you just go out there. It's very low value. So this would be like your Royal Dragon Hide. If you go to Dagonoth Kings, it drops the Fremnik armor. So you'll see people out there in skeletal, rock shell and spined. And probably one of the scariest sights you'll see is a guy with a knock staff or like a staff of Slithscape running at you with some weird like lunar robes at you. This is called Star Fury armor, and like for the longest time I had no idea what this was, but it was this random armor that came from like some treasure hunter promotion, but like turned out to be really decent in PvP. And like you had to like do a bunch of events and spins to upgrade it, and it's pretty much like the magic version of Royal Dragonhide. So it's definitely right now the only way to get that armor is through Vix, whatchamacallit, Vix like trading shops.
Yep.
So if you have bonus XP, like that's like very like no one would know about this unless you're like a PKer. And lately, one of like the bigger things that kind of happened was the mining and smithing rework. Elder Rune actually turned out to be like a really cheap but good armor to have in the wilderness. So if you're ever just doing a tree run and you need some extra gear, throw on some Elder Rune. Very tanky, and you'll be able to not take any damage from PKers on you. And then also just a bit more. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling on. It's got lots of
No,
info.
please do.
No, there's like you guys probably do lots of ports, right? And like ports armor kind of really died as like PVM turned into power armor. We want power armor. We got trim masterwork and elite Serenic. Ports armor kind of died, but it still has use in like the PKing community because it's tier 85 tank armor, and like it's pretty tanky out there and really good. A little bit of risk on you, but it definitely would save you in some situations. And a lot of the best PKers out there run Sea Singers and Death Lotus. Then also another ports item, you'll see Leviathan rings, like a ring that like you thought had almost like no use in the game. It's pretty frequently used in the just in the wilderness. Like it's only got like a 2% chance to proc, but like it's got decent stats on it and it could help you like in a fight. And then sort of the last section of armor I got is the PvP specific armor. So this is the stuff that comes from revs. It's your Zuriels, Morgans, Vestas, and Stadius. It's tier 78, which is pretty respectable in the wilderness. But you can also use the equipment patches to get this augmented and upgraded to the tier 88. So also you'll find a lot of PKers running with this. And one of the interesting things about it, if you die with that armor on you, the person that kills you actually gets, it might not be exactly nothing, but it's a very small amount of like GP. So not gonna lie, I run a lot of PvP armor just so my deathless deaths look very low. So
Smart.
Well, you just talked for like 10 minutes straight, which is the point. But I was just like sitting there thinking, I have known maybe like one of the things he's talked about, the Fury Sharks. I was like, oh, I know what a Fury Shark is. And then the rest, I'm like, oh, no, literally would not have any idea. So thank you for the insight.
Sure, it's all on the wiki. Check it out.
Yeah, I'm glad a lot of the items that seem irrelevant to the non-PKing community are actually still put to good use. So good stuff. And I've seen you wear a lot of that tier 88 armor, so I'm glad. And I'm like knowing that whoever kills you gets little out of it. Music to my ears. But
uh,
we move on to the next question. And so, Reinis, what has been some of your most lucrative PKing instances? Meaning, and specifically, I mean like your biggest
like biggest
gains.
loot
Yeah,
or
biggest loot.
yeah, gotcha. Yeah. I wish I had some like really good story where I was like risk fighting some guy and smited his, staff of Armadillo, right? But honestly, nothing like that I've been in yet. A lot of like actually the high value PKs that I've gotten in my experience have been probably just from some unfortunate people that were out in the wilderness and didn't know like what they were getting into. I think probably the highest value I've had on a death list was maybe around 200 to 250 mil. And it was just a very bad situation for the guy. I was doing my typical nightly warbands, and a guy went up to the camp. He had dual Drygor longswords and a Luck of the Dwarves.
Damn.
Got one loot, didn't have protect item on, and I just got on him instantly and got all those. So yeah, so I think that's kind of like where I'm at. Other than that, my other high kills are either just people that accidentally have like a Luck of the Dwarves, or like maybe they have a Trigor and they forget to protect item, or a Dragon Rider Lance. But the majority that I've been a part of has been just from like warbands, kills, and unsuspicious looters like that. I do have one other instance where I was with a team of maybe like two or three other people hopping around at Volcano. If you remember, like there used to be a lot of divination bots in there. So Wilderness Volcano used to be like a pretty like hot spot for like random groups of PKers out there, just looking to either get some energy or find other groups to fight. So we were just looking for a guy with a Zerite bow, just hopping world to world, and our plan was to kind of get him on login. So pretty much as he's hopping to the next world, we'd be there like waiting for him before he had any time to react and like protect his item, just so we'd get his bow. But like we were probably looking for this guy for maybe like 20, 30 minutes. And then we just spot some naked poor soul with a scythe out there killing bots, and they were just going down the list. So yeah, we kind of just switched our targets to this guy and waited for him on one of the worlds, saw him log in just right in the center of the volcano, and just killed him for the scythe, probably back when they were probably closer to the 400 mil range. So, but obviously you're with a team, you split it with everyone that contributed. But yeah, that's probably my high value PKs right there.
So the next question, have you ever missed a beat in terms of like you lost one of your like tier 90 weapons, you didn't have protect item on, something went wrong, you got piled? Has that ever happened
Man.
to you?
Fortunately for me, I have yet to be in a situation like that, but I did happen to lose one item back in the day that, it still kind of, gets to me like, man, how did I like get into that? Pretty much probably like a year or so ago, I was still looting warbands at the time. I was running a strike bow, another item you guys might not know what that is, but it's basically the upgraded dark bow that's tier 85. Actually the best shield bow in the game. So I used to run and loot in warbands with that because you had defensive abilities on it, so very useful. But at the time, it was late one night. I was hopping worlds. I started looting. I forgot to either click my protect item or just completely forgot about it entirely. And then I was actually chatting with a guy next to me, and then like 20 seconds later, he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna start attacking it." I'm like, "Come on, I thought we were friends." But yeah, that guy ended up getting my strike bow from me, and I'm never gonna forget it. Always protect item. It'll save you a lot of stress.
Yeah.
I think and this wasn't in the wilderness, but it's still, if we're talking PvP, got tricked into a Clan Wars portal. Like not the like there's, you know how there's two on one side and then one that's like a group clan battle on the other?
Yeah.
Am I speaking that? Okay. Right.
You got the white portal, which is safe, and you got the red portal, which is not safe.
Right. And then isn't there like on the other side, there's like a purple
Purple
portal?
portal.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I got purple portaled with a group that was like, we're in the middle of a war, come help, blah, blah, blah. It's like everything's safe. And then I go in and it was not, apparently. Just got piled in. Lost, like at that time, all my best armor.
Yeah.
And
Gotta hurt. Those are things you never forget.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally. So to transition, because you've mentioned warbands a couple times, Reinis, another thing that you are well known for, or at least Rainy has told me you are well known for, is your actual warbanding skills. And I guess both of you are kind of king and queen.
No, I just loot.
Rainy's the +1.
Yes.
So kind of give us a little background info on why warbanding is such an important or prevalent part of your current RuneScape experience.
Oh yeah. Shoot, should I get into like how I started warbands, or like the whole shebang, or just why warbands is so great?
You say whatever you want. This is your podcast.
Sure. Okay, everyone buckle in. This is gonna be a long story time. So warbands, I probably okay, so it initially starts back in like 2011, 12, when I kind of like just came back to the game after a little bit. I was randomly killing steel dragons, and some random guy just started chatting me up. He asked me to join his clan, and I did it. And this guy, I would end up being Mr. Lord Bragone. RIP, he stopped playing RS, but still a good friend of mine to this day. But it's funny, after he invited me to this clan, he quit for like many months. But then he came back, so I'm like, okay, well, here you are, I remember you. He was the one that got me into warbands, actually, because he was the one that started warbanding, and he was interested in PvP, and back then you got big XP from it, so he started inviting all his friends and clanmates along, and I ended up joining my first FC with this guy. He had an old name, but he changed it to Effie, so it's EFE. He was part of this group called Warbands 1, which was a giant sort of Warbands friends chat back in the day. Like, I'm talking about hundreds of people would be getting on to do a wave. And this wasn't like just kind of like how we do now, like get on for 10 to 15 minutes, get your loot, get out, go back to doing your PVM and skilling, right? Like, you almost like devoted like 2 to 3 hours of your day for this, just because like some of the requirements for it back then were insane. Like, you'd have to do like mandatory gear checks at like the canoe station. You had to meet up there like 20 minutes before wave. Some FCs like had like pre-wave like PK practice. Like, it was a crazy time. If you ever did waves back then, it was actually like supremely well organized. Like, they had this website. It's actually still up today. You can go to it. It's called Warband Tracker. I swear I'm not like doxing you or DDoSing you or whatever, but like they actually still update like the WizWax on a daily basis, which kind of like surprises me. But like, that used to be like the like the website you go to, and like that's like where you'd like find a friends chat. And it was like a giant alliance there, and like you can look, and like they have a list still of old names that would be like used to be KOS or Kill on Sight. But yeah, back then like warbands was like pretty intense, because you'd have like full FCs of probably like 30 to 40 people just probably looting like one camp until it was empty, and it was like just a whole army of like royal crossbows just heading out there. But I was in this FC with this FE guy. He had like two people under him. You might know him. One of them was a guy by the name of Cole W. he's pretty well regarded in the wilderness and the history of the FC I'm currently in. And there was a guy
Yes.
named Mitch, X Rewind. You might know him. He streams on Twitch. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he used to be one of the other like high ranks in this FC. Um, but this FC that I was a part of, like with them, like it actually had like a lot of like really like old school, like high ranking, like guys that were like on the front pages of RS that were like getting 5.4 bill. So I'm like, man, it's crazy. Like I started out like war banding with like these guys that were like really good at the game, and like looking back at it, it was just a fun like time to be a part of war bands back in like 2013, 2014 era. Um,
Um.
what's up,
Oh,
Rainy?
yes. It's funny. Like, it's good that you mentioned Warbands One and the mandatory PK practice, because my first experiences with Warbands were with I don't know what it was called, but it was 103 based, World 103 based, and it was like 2013, 2014. I was a noob. I just knew that the camps you looted were all like skills that were either like annoying to train or they were expensive. Um, and so like it was like good loot if you just kind of like risked it and went in the wilderness. But I only did it like twice because I only wanted loot. I didn't want to be a part of all that. And I didn't even know how to be a part of all that. And yeah, I was picked randomly out of like 60 people to scout. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And then it was even worse when they were like PMs off, and I didn't know how to turn my PMs off. So I'm pretty sure I just like switched my private chat to off to where I wouldn't see anybody's messages coming in, but I was still online. It was just that day was a bad day. But yeah, those were my early warband experiences. It wasn't even an experience because I stopped going. But yeah, fast forward like many years later, and I'm with Illusion, where I'm happy and just the looter. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like much simpler times like now compared to then, because like back then like it was a lifestyle. I'm not even like exaggerating that. Like these people like lived and died like in the wilderness. Like the PKing scene was like pretty like good and like populated, and a lot of people were participating. I guess to kind of transition to the current FC in Illusion. So the guy that helped to run that other FC, Cole W, he and my friend Lord Bragone, my friend Jeremy, I think that was his name. They kind of ended up joining Illusion once the FE guy he kind of stopped hosting, and Illusion was actually a pretty big PKing FC back in its prime. I don't know too much of the history about it, but probably back in 2015 through 2016, 17, they were really big, and I think they had some like probably the best PKers. And I know in the modern times you'll often hear as like SAP PK as like the
Yeah.
goats and like the hot shots. Like back then, it was Illusion that was like running the wilderness, or at least one of the groups that was. Uh, but Illusion kind of ran for a while, and then it kind of slowly died out in late 2017, 2018, and then like they closed the FC. But I was friends with Cole because he joined my clan for a little bit, and I still remember him from my first FC. Uh, and I kind of started playing RS back in 2017 is probably when I got really active again, and uh, I think I've been active since then, really. And then probably early 2019, I was, from time to time I'd PM Cole and just ask him how he's been. He was playing old school and RS3 and here and there. And he randomly just decided, like, as a meme, to kind of like open up Illusion again and run a few waves. And he kind of just PM'd me. He's like, "Hey, I need help with this. Like, would you mind long?" I'm like, "Sure." Like, I haven't done warbands in years, but like, let's do it. And we ran a few waves, and it was a good time for when it happened. But after like they kind of like, "Oh, our joke's over," there were a couple of us that like were still like with it, right? Because we're like, man, this is some good XP. Like back then I was really about like getting your 120s and 200 mils. So we had like a small crew of honestly like some nights it was like 3 to 5 people that were just running waves with us, and we kept it going throughout 2019. And like over time, like we recruit random nakeds or other friends that we saw in the wilderness, and we kind of got them to tag along. And then Cole would from time to time pop back and be like, wait, you guys are still here, like what's going on? And then people started getting more and more active, and we had some like of the OG illusions, as we call it, would come back, and they'd still hang out in the friends chat from time to time. And when lockdown actually happened, you had a lot of people with COVID, right? uh, they really started like playing RS again because they couldn't go out. So it was actually a really like good time for the friends chat, just because we had like so many like PKers and people come back, and it was really active for a good while. But yeah, just pretty much from that, we've been running since that little reopening in 2019. And we're still kind of a smaller crew that we pretty much do a mix of reset waves or sometimes the wave after. And we've got a few international folks now that do the other waves. But yeah, I mean, right now we just try to keep it as pretty friendly community that we have, and we do warbands time to time. No more like mandatory like PK practices and so forth, and
Thank
all
God.
this stuff. Yeah, definitely try to keep it like simple, and we do our best to like try to get rid of the sort of toxicity that's kind of like seen with like the wilderness community, right? So I mean, we just try to be as chill as we can. And uh, I guess to further transition, Cole kind of really stopped playing RS as much and hasn't been active. He's in school, and he's been playing a lot of World of Warcraft, so he kind of transitioned the FC over to some of us, and we're still keeping it going. And yeah, kind of doing our best to keep their little baby alive. Just because a lot of it's I definitely really like the aspect of helping others to get their XP. Like, just to think about, like, probably over the years I've helped people get like billions and billions of like construction and mining XP and like all this. And I think for me at least, a lot of it's just about having good time with friends and just helping each other out just to get better at the game. And the other part of it also is just like kind of keep the legacy going. Like, even though I wasn't there for the original part of it, like I still want these guys, like if they do come back, like in a few months or years, and they're like, oh dang, this FC is still alive, like just to come back and just still have a community that they can be part of, because that's honestly a lot of what the wilderness was and still is about. Sorry, very long backstory there.
No, thank you. It definitely kind of gives tribute to that. There definitely is a history of people and where warband started, where it is now. I guess I have a question as someone who is not anywhere close to the warband scene. Is it so much now when you go and do warbands, you're still having like active groups or active people that are really only there to try to fuck shit up and like ruin the fun for everybody? Or do you find more now that that's a lot less infrequent? And maybe to phrase that in a better way, are there a lot less people that you quote kill on site now versus than what it used to be?
Yeah, no, I think definitely back in the day, like if you were a white on the mini map, like the FC would just pile you and take you out. I think, at least from my experience and like the waves that like we run and still do, like if you're a naked and just a looter, like we really don't care. Like, just get your loot. Like, we try to be friendly. Like, even like still like we'll even try to recruit you. In terms of like other FCs, you still have a handful that are out there that are still like looking for fights, right? And trying to kill everyone that they can. It's a very small like minority that's out there, at least compared to how it was. I did mention earlier like the sappy Ks of the world. Like, they used to be the big PKers running the wilderness, and they kind of stopped running lately. So they used to be like the big dogs that almost like all the other warbands FCs almost feared and fought with. But they stopped running and kind of split off into other ones. And I think for the most part, we try to keep it friendly. at least with us. But I know there's a lot of like drama that's still out there between other FCs, and it still exists depending on who you're with. But at least from our FC, like we try to be friendly with everyone, unless like I got a small list of names of people that like if I see you, you're dead just because you've either killed our guys in the past or like you've known to cause trouble to our looters before. Uh, Rainy might know this person, the infamous Hanamax.
Yes, the
Uh,
bone
he,
breaker.
he's a guy that he does like almost every wave, but he just goes around breaking the beams, and it's really not good for warbands because if the beam's broken, the camp only lasts like 5 minutes as opposed to 10. So he's just like this random naked with a nade snot helm who's just iconic, and like he's just like a guy that's out there to like cause like people just more like stress and problems. Like I hate to say it, but like he's like doing no good for anyone, and he'll like attack nakeds and so forth. But he's just like, for an example, like one of the few guys we would just like kill instantly. But me personally, like want to be nice. Like unless you got like major risk, like that guy with the dual Drygors earlier, just get your loot. Like I got no issue with it. A lot of us have no issue with it. Just sometimes you can get into like spicy dramas where like a lot of people run alts in the wilderness, and like you're sort of questioning like, is this person like actually a naked looter, or is he like a scout for another FC? So that's kind of where it gets spicy, and we kind of have like a list of names that we need to recognize, but 90% of the time it's usually okay, and just your standard average looter just looking to get their 100k XP. So definitely a lot more relaxed these days.
Well,
Yes.
we appreciate so much. Thank you for kind of taking the time to explain your story on both the player killing and the warbandsing side of things. It's great that we kind of have someone in the loop that can give us some insight on a big aspect of the game that not everyone does, because clearly I have no idea what you've been talking about this entire time. But that's okay. I'm the audience you're here for today. I am my own podcast listener. So I guess with that, Reinis, any final thoughts you'd like to share upon us?
Sure. No, definitely. Thanks for having me, guys. If you ever do end up in the wilderness, protect item. Number one rule right there. And definitely don't bring your bank out there. It's probably not worth it for whatever you're doing. Just some tips for the casual non-wilderness community out there.
Yes, and if you're looting, a warband camp, make sure your PMs are off. Leave CC, GCC groups, and get your bath boost and everything. So yes.
She's a professional. She knows it.
Yep, absolutely.
And well, with that, thank you all for listening today. You can find us again at Spotify or YouTube at Fate of the Pods. Join our Discord channel. It's alive, it's up, it's running. We will put that link in the description below. And with that, we will see you on the next one. Goodbye.
Fate.
Bye.